this very important second edition of the Self-Reliance for Renewable Energy Manufacturing Conference and Exhibition. And CII truly has been a very, very strong torchbearer of India's vision to become a self-reliant and an economy that not only provides for the billion people in India, billion plus people in India for the industrial and economic base of India, but CII has been the voice of India worldwide. And I'm really delighted that they've organized this virtual conference and exhibition to showcase the huge potential that India offers in the renewable energy manufacturing space. Rahul Munjal has been one of the major players in the renewable energy sector since several years. And I'm sure his leadership of the CII Renewable Energy Council will help people really understand the huge potential that India has to offer. Almost everyone present in this conference are important partners in the renewable energy space, and at some point or the other, I've interacted with them. But I must share with you, Mr. Costa, that there's a saying in one of our Indian mythological texts called Atharveda, which says, and I quote, "Earth is my mother and I am her child." In a sense, it only highlights the sacred connection that each Indian has with Mother Nature. It's just a very natural phenomena for us right from childhood to be connected to nature. Environmental care is not that the world wants us to do it. When we talk about climate change and taking care of the environment, it's not because at Paris in the COP21, we all agreed that we have to save the planet. We all took in some nationally determined contributions towards that goal of not allowing the temperature to go above 2 degrees. Not that it looks to happen the way the world is going, not that it looks to happen the way we are messing up with the environment every single day that passes. But everybody understands it's important. Everybody calls it the inconvenient truth. But very few are willing to take action to resolve that inconvenient truth. In fact, Prime Minister Modi, soon after Vice President Al Gore came out with his book, The Inconvenient Truth, within a few months of that, Prime Minister Modi came out with his version, calling it the convenient action. And that's what I'm going to share with the distinguished participants today about what India is doing and how we have evolved in our actionable agenda towards addressing this big challenge before the world. Our culture, our traditional practices, our way of living, it truly reflects this consciousness. And I remember on an earlier CII occasion mentioning that an Indian child, when he's young, even when he walks out of his room, and if he doesn't switch off the light and the fan, forget air conditioners, that's a luxury still not available with every home. But even if you don't switch off a thing like a light or a fan, which barely consumes any electricity, you can surely get a spanking from your mother for your carelessness. And as Prime Minister Modi also says, for us, protecting the environment is an article of faith. It's something that we are absolutely committed to, and therefore, waste is completely unacceptable to a typical Indian or an Indian family. Recycling, reuse, ensuring that minimum amount of wastage is there in our food, in our consumption of any product, is like a given. I know families, I know communities where in your dining table, on the dining plate, you're not allowed to leave a morsel also. Take only as much as you can eat. But what you've taken, you better eat. So that if you have overeaten, the next time you'll take less. And in that context, if we see our Indian landscape, we've been blessed by nature also. We have huge amount of water in terms of our rivers. We have sun round the year. We have very good wind velocities in different parts of the country. And we have young entrepreneurs, our startups, who are willing to engage with environment protection and sustainability.
We can't hear you. Something has happened. We can't hear you.
India was amongst the first few countries to set up hydropower generation plants. And very early on, maybe 60 years ago or 70 years ago, our first hydro plant, in fact, of 130 kilowatts, very small plant, was started in 1897, 125 years ago, by a very visionary entrepreneur at that point of time. It's a hill station in Darjeeling in West Bengal. We have had visionaries like Baba Sahib Ambedkar, a founding father of the Indian Constitution, the framer of the Indian Constitution, who laid the foundation of an all India policy with regards to developing hydro plants and electric power from water. He in fact set up the Damodar Valley Corporation, Hirakud, many hydro projects which came up under his leadership several decades ago. Because of the scale at which we made hydropower, very soon India became a hub of hydropower equipment also. And we became self-sufficient and started making all that equipment in India. Subsequently, we started working on wind. Again, initially all the wind plants were imported, but looking at the rapid pace with which we developed our wind plants, very soon technologies were developed in India. And we finally make probably wind equipment for the rest of the world in India now. We have several very good companies making wind power equipment. And today we are self-sufficient in equipment which makes wind power. Because the volumes went up, justified manufacturing in India. Our third tryst with the renewable power sector was solar. And that's the biggest potential. In solar, I remember the government before Prime Minister Modi had set up a target to make 20 gigawatt of solar power by 2022. One of the first decisions I took under the guidance of Prime Minister Modi in 2014 was to up the ante from 20 gigawatt to 100 gigawatt by 2022. In fact, that's about the time our thinking moved from megawatts to gigawatts. And the idea was that how can we bring scale to India? I remember originally when we started wind power, solar power in India, our original target was 1 gigawatt. And most of it was located in Gujarat, the state from where Mr. Modi comes. He was the chief minister of that state at that point of time. Power was extremely expensive. It was 7 times more expensive than today, 700% of what it is today. But Mr. Modi, being a visionary, decided to start setting up solar plants at that high cost, which is not a very popular decision politically. But recognizing the long-term requirement, we started setting up solar plants there. Most of it were imported, and started our foray into the solar power sector. That's about 2 decades ago. I still remember those high prices were a detriment to domestic manufacturing because the scale was so small, prices were so high, every entrepreneur could see that in the long run it's not sustainable. Yet a few people did foray into solar power equipment manufacturing. Sadly, most of them failed. Probably didn't assess the pricing right or the technology right. And almost all of them became defunct as we moved on. When Prime Minister Modi became he became Prime Minister in 2014, he realized that we'll have to increase the volume significantly enough to be able to drive down prices, also to bring scale to our domestic manufacturing, which will make it competitive and viable, and demonstrate to them that there's a big market for your produce in India. And therefore, we started bidding out projects in a very big way in the period 2014 to 2017, to the extent that you'll be happy to know, as do most of the other Indian participants on this conference, that we were able to drive down prices from, at that point of time in 2014, it was about 17, 18 US cents per kilowatt hour of energy. We were able to drive it down to 3 cents, three and a quarter cent per kilowatt hour of energy. At 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour, we are actually cheaper than carbon-based thermal power when we produce solar power in India. And because of the huge scale at which we bid out, we were able to get the world's best companies to come to India, invest in India. We were able to get very competitive pricing, and we had allowed imports. We didn't try to stall the imports. Our logic being that if we were to create a burden or come in the midst of imports, we would never be able to drive down prices. And if we didn't drive down prices, the demand would not come in. The distribution companies would not afford very expensive power. The moment it became 3.5 cents, we were able to start selling that power to the distribution companies comfortably. And we were able to show to the domestic manufacturers that should you produce in India, there's a large market waiting for you out there. And then it was a question of bridging a little bit of the gap between cheaper imports and a slightly higher cost of manufacturing in India. So we still are a little bit import dependent on some of our products. So really, in a sense, it is because we wet our feet in the water initially, even though we probably got a little bit hurt, we learned how to swim very quickly thereafter. And that's what the Indian solar energy story is all about. So in sequence, hydro, wind, solar, we've seen 3 success stories, which empowers us to now up the ante further, so that from an overall renewable energy target of 175 gigawatt by 2022, India is now looking at 450 gigawatt by 2030. And that's probably the world's fastest and largest ramp up of clean energy that is currently underway. Of course, you lose out sometimes. In between, we attempted geothermal also, but we didn't succeed. Geothermal didn't turn out to be either technologically viable or financially viable. We dropped that idea. So we've not even been dogmatic about our renewable energy story. irrespective whether import or domestic. Our idea is to make India conscious of its electricity needs being met in a more sustainable fashion and balancing the cost of electricity in such a manner that our developmental goals do not get affected. In fact, we are now embarking on the next stage where we are looking at focusing on electric vehicles in a big way. Because we do believe that diesel or petrol, crude oil, is another very big drain on our Indian foreign exchange because we are largely import dependent. And secondly, it's time that we looked at pollution from the automobile sector also very seriously. Brazil is a role model in some sense for us as we are expanding our ethanol production. When in 14 we came into government, India was at about 1% ethanol in our petrol. The blending was 1%. This year, we will be 8.5% of our petrol need will be blended with ethanol. Our original target was to be 20% by 2030. We first moved it to 20% by 2025. And I'm happy to share with this August audience that we are now looking at 20% ethanol blending in the next 2 years, 2 to 2.5 years. By 23-24, India is going to be 20% blending ethanol in our petrol products. And of course, our ultimate target is to have also vehicles which can take up to 100% ethanol, some of which I saw when I came to your beautiful country for the BRICS conference. And I actually walked up to a gas station in Brasilia to look at all the various pumps offering different ethanol blended fuels and get a sense of what's happening over there. So really, electric vehicles, another major step forward. We believe battery technologies are going to be very important for our sustainability mission and for renewable energy to progress more. Because of the intermittent nature of renewable energy, we need adequate storage. So we are investing heavily on batteries now. Similarly, we are looking at how we can make these batteries in these electric vehicles create a natural hedge or a natural storage capacity for the nation to balance our grid requirements. So we'll encourage automobile users of electric cars to recharge their batteries using renewable energy or solar energy in the day hours, and for which we are looking at a big rollout of charging stations across gas stations all across the country. So all our petrol pumps gradually will start having fast chargers and chargers installed, because that's going to be the enabler for a rapid rollout of electric vehicles. I'm also very happy to share with you that we are already looking into the future and have started engaging with hydrogen technologies. We now have a hydrogen mission, and the Prime Minister has often articulated his vision to promote hydrogen. We are looking at research and development on it, and we have already announced a comprehensive national hydrogen energy mission, which is going to work on generating hydrogen from green power sources. In the recent budget, the Honorable Finance Minister announced the launch of this hydrogen energy mission, and we do hope to see significant progress towards that end. Incidentally, we also have another success story around our LED lighting. India is the world's LED lighting capital. We are probably the largest consumers of LED bulbs or tube lights. You go to any store in India, you'll find it difficult to get an incandescent bulb anymore. It would probably sell as an antique piece at 10 times the price of an LED bulb. But the LED mission was another success story led by Prime Minister Modi, where we were able to bring scale. Initially, if required, we even imported LED bulbs to scale, rapidly rolled it out all over the country. We are probably today, in the last, if you see 6 years, we must have consumed close to 1.5 or 2 billion LED lighting equipment. Our prices are down from 2014 to 2017, 3 years, by about 85%. The price of LED fell, and having a long life and large amount of illumination. Today, everybody in the country, offices, homes, factories, everybody uses LED lighting. And that has saved the country billions of dollars in electricity bills that consumers have saved. And as a nation, we brought down our carbon emissions by over 120 million tons every year, just through one program to change over from incandescent bulbs to LED bulbs. And they're now largely manufactured in India. They're, of course, coming out with another program to incentivize those who make components for LED bulbs, which are being assembled in India, so that we can become more and more self-reliant on that score. So all in all, I just thought I'll share with this distinguished audience India's twist with the clean energy sector, starting with scale, starting with self-reliance, starting with a huge manufacturing ecosystem that is already functional in some sectors, that will grow in other sectors soon. And we have full confidence that this is one area where India will play a leadership role in the years to come. As it is often said, we are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change. But we are the last generation who has an opportunity to do something about it. So it's something that we are all equally responsible for. And I'd like to invite all the participants of this very important conference to engage even more actively in this fast-growing, important sector. I wish all of you success in your manufacturing plans. Always happy to help in any way we can to support your efforts. We are going through tough times, but the best always comes out when we are faced with adversity. So let not COVID or the COVID pandemic deter us from the economic objectives and the very, very big imperative of sustainability that the world is confronted with. Let's work together as a team, working shoulder to shoulder to resolve this big crisis that faces the world. My best wishes to this conference and exhibition. I believe you have concluded today after a very successful 2-day engagement. I'm sure you'll come up with a paper which will enlighten us more about your deliberations of the 2 days. And I'm sure you'll continue with your own efforts to bring about the manufacturing revolution in India in the renewable energy space. God bless all of you. My best wishes for your good health and safety. Thank you.
Dear Minister Goyal, always a pleasure to listen to you. The depth and breadth of your knowledge, coupled with your oration skills, how simply and chronologically you've explained the transition of India energy sector starting from 1800s, from 20 gigawatts, 20 gigawatt plan to 175 gigawatt plan, to now a 400 gigawatt plan, is all due to you and to our Honorable Prime Minister. Your vision, his vision, and we're now making it happen. And now you have showed us a new vision for Atmanirbhar. So not only will we have 450 gigawatts of renewable energy, we'll also manufacture a large part of it in India. Then the vision on ethanol, then electric vehicles and hydrogen. I thank you from leading from the front. I thank you for your contribution to this meeting, for your contribution to the RE sector, and most importantly, for your contribution to the progress of the country. Many years from now, when climate change will be behind us, and at some point it will be, and I'm a climate optimist, I think your name will be written in broad, big letters, and India will have a lot to thank you for. Dear Ms. Costa, thank you for giving us insights into the Brazil energy sector, ethanol, biodiesel, hydropower, hydrogen, solar. These are very wide canvas of collaboration between our two beautiful nations. I'm sure this is only a beginning of a beautiful and a mutually beneficial relationship. And I'm sure we will go a long way in our relationship. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming here. I'd like to thank the participants. I'd like to thank CB. And I hope, as the minister said, climate change, we are the last, and whatever we do must be done in this decade itself. So the solutions have to be here and now, and they have to be implemented before, I guess, the turn of the century. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.